Hi, this is Philippa. I just want to let you know before you listen to this episode that from about halfway into the end, Robbie and I do talk quite a lot about trauma response. We don't talk about specific traumatic experiences that we or other people have experienced, but we do talk about what it's like to be triggered into a trauma response based on our past experiences. We also talk a lot about how trauma reactions happen. We also talk quite a bit about how to soothe ourselves when we are experiencing a trauma response. So, if this is something that might not be a good idea for you to listen to, please look after yourself and perhaps give this episode a miss. Your health, mental health is more important to us than you listening to this episode if it's something that might not be in your best interest today. Okay, so if you are listening, here's the episode.
Hi, and welcome back to the HSP Connection with me, Robbie Lee.
And me, Philippa Robinson. This is where we share our stories, insights, and strategies to help fellow highly sensitive people navigate their own path to living a fulfilling and meaningful life. So, Robbie, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're talking about a topic that was coming up for me personally. And so I thought, what a great place to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's comparison.
Oh, comparison.
Yeah.
Yep. We all do it.
Right. Yeah. And specifically, I'm talking about the type of comparison that we kind of use to beat up on ourselves or to prove to ourselves that we're less than other people or not as good, not good enough. It's that voice that comes up when maybe we're having some self-confidence challenges or those types of things. So I was like, yeah, I know I'm not the only one that deals with that type of thing. And so I thought it'd be a really good topic for our podcast.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that as highly sensitive persons, because we do tend to be deep thinkers and process things really deeply, we can be perhaps a little bit more prone to comparing as well, because we are going over and over something. So I think this is a great subject.
Yeah.
Thank you for choosing it.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having the conversation with me.
Well, always.
One thing that occurs to me, when I hear other people like comparing themselves, oh, I'm not as good as so and so, or look what so and so has done. It just always occurs to me what we're doing in those instances is we're comparing somebody's outsides and just a little snippet, a little sliver, right, of their life, outward facing. And we're comparing it to all the stuff that goes on inside for us, all of those little voices in our own head. And it's like, oh, yeah. I mean, it's not even a fair comparison. We're not even comparing apples to apples, right?
And, we don't, like you say, we don't know what's going on inside for them. I mean, they might feel every bit whatever we're feeling inside, but we don't know that. And you're so right that we are comparing. It's like what people say about social media, isn't it? That especially if you're doom scrolling, you're in a bad place and you go to social media to scroll, you're comparing your worst day with what you find on social media, which is people's best times and best days. So, we are in those moments of comparison. We are we I was going to say we're doing it to ourselves on purpose. Like we kind of know what we're doing, even if not consciously.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Oh, and we still do it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's a self-flagellation, right? It's like, oh, here's proof. Here's proof that I'm not good enough. Here it is. Here's more proof.
Yeah. Which instantly is taking me to the law of attraction, which is,
Yep.
Whatever you look for, whatever you look for, whatever you project, that's what you're going to get. So, if you want to find evidence of how insert negative term you're feeling, however that is, you will find evidence everywhere because it is everywhere.
Absolutely.
And a lot of consumerism is built on making us feel shitty about ourselves so that we will consume to make ourselves feel better. So yeah, I mean, this is like already there's all these little tiny tangents starting, and it's like, where are we going to go? Where would you like to go?
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about is, well, the two things. I want to talk about what some clients have said to me, and then I want to share a little bit about like what kind of goes on for me in my head. Because, with clients, I've had so many times when a client has shared something, and I asked, do you mind if I share something, from my life? And they're like, absolutely. Like, I can completely relate to what you're going through. And what they say back is, oh, but I thought you, in some version of had that all together, or didn't get nervous. You don't seem like you get nervous in this situation, or that didn't seem hard for you, or it seemed like all of this was easy. Right. And so it's like, I see it time and time again. It's like the story we tell ourselves about other people is, oh, that must be so easy for them. I see that they're doing it. That must be so easy for them. They must not have the challenges that I'm having as I'm doing it, or as I'm thinking about doing it. Right. And it's just, the more I talk to humans, like, we're so similar. Like, it's not true. Like, I can't speak for every person on the planet, obviously, but certainly the people in my circles who have been kind enough to share what's true for them, they all have challenges with self-confidence at some point, with fear at some point, with um, feeling like they're not good enough at some point, with feeling like they've failed at some point, with feeling like it's too hard, with feeling imposter syndrome, right? Someone's going to find out I really don't know what I'm talking about. Like, all those things are so common. Like, it's a human thread that's so common. But in these moments of comparison, it can feel like you're on an island. I'm the only one feels like this. Everyone else that I'm seeing out there, they've got it all together. And so then the story we say is, so therefore there's something wrong with me.
And that's what underneath it all, that's what it all boils down to, isn't it? I'm not good enough, clever enough, rich enough, thin enough, successful enough, whatever enough it is. We can easily find evidence outside to sort of back that up, and then we just end up feeling, and I don't think it's as a result of that we end up feeling not worthy. I think the feeling not worthy came before that, and it usually comes from something that happened in childhood, and not throwing parents under the bus. It's just the way it is sometimes. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I used to walk around in my life thinking everybody else had it sussed. Everybody else seemed to be happy and somehow know how to do life, and I didn't. So I must be broken. I definitely thought there was something faulty with me, that somehow I hadn't got, I don't know, maybe I hadn't got a connection in my head somewhere, or I hadn't got a gene that I needed, or I hadn't got, I mean, I know this all sounds a bit dramatic, but I definitely thought I was missing something that meant I couldn't do life like everybody else could. And I realized, and I felt very alone, because that's the other thing that comparison does. It's like you said, being on an island, it makes you feel very isolated, because you feel like that, and then you don't want to tell anybody else, because you don't want anybody else to know that you feel like that. And when you do start talking about it, like you say, it's amazing how many people feel the same way.
Yes. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love groups so
Yeah.
much,
Mm.
because it really helps combat that voice saying it's just you. It's
Yeah.
like, well, no, everyone here is had a similar experience or really understands what I'm saying. It's not just me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I might have told you this story before. I can't remember if I have, sorry. But I was running a group last year, and there was a lady in that group who was saying that she said, I've got this person in my life who's a friend, and they're wonderful. They're sort of like, they're here, there, and everywhere doing all these things. They've sort of been on telly. They're, not that makes them necessarily, they're just a human being, but and they've been on telly, and they're my friend. And every time I wonder what on earth they're doing, spending time with me. What do they want to be friends with me for? And so not only was she saying that, but there was a gasp from the other side of the room. And another lady said, "Oh my God, I thought it was just me that felt like that."
Yeah.
And that's what happens. That's the power of being vulnerable
Yes.
in a group of people. Not only is it healing for you to say it, if you're the one saying it first, it's very healing for other people who need to hear that.
100%. Yeah. And you said earlier that the unworthiness feeling comes first before, the comparison. And I completely agree with that. Right? Because if we're feeling worthy, there's no place for those comparison thoughts to land.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
And it's been totally true for me. I mean, just recently, like I just had another bout of it where I'm growing in my business and in my putting myself out in the world in my offerings and all of that. And this is just always the right time for the not enoughness to show up, the imposter syndrome, the perfectionism, all the coping skills, all the not coping skills, the help me with my term,
Survival skills.
the survival skills. Thank you. All the survival skills that are like, that are there to keep me small and safe. They all
Yeah.
show up.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was just noticing my inner chatter last week, and it was all different kinds of flavors of, look what so and so is doing. I'm not, and I'm somehow not measuring up to that in my head, right? And what was fun about it for me is I was just like, oh, I want to do a podcast episode on this. And so then I like went into curious brain about it. And I'm just like, so let's like, where do all the places that this shows up? And it's like, here are some of the flavors of it. Oh, this person graduated from the same, at the same time that I did from my coaching certificate. And look where their business is bigger than mine. Therefore, I'm doing something wrong. Oh, this person is the same age as me, and here's where they are in life, which somehow looks better than mine. And I'm, better. I'm saying in quotes because, again, how do you measure that? It's so subjective. But anyway, then then the outward stuff wasn't working. And what I say by working is I was like, okay, well, that's kind of silly. Like, my other voices were coming to help me. Then it started going to my own comparison with my own self. And here's I'm like, man, here's what that looks like. Well, I'd always thought that by the time I was 50, here's how my life would look.
Oh
right?
gosh. Yeah.
Here's so, and then I thought, oh my gosh, how many times have I done that to myself in my life? When I graduate, when I turn this age, when I get married, when I turn this age, and then and then this age, and then this age. It's constantly like, here's this magical life I'm going to have at some certain point in my life, and when I'm in comparison mode, I don't go, oh my gosh, look at all I have done. Look at this life, this beautiful life I've created for myself. Look at all. That's not where my head is at all. It's completely focusing on any of the perceived lacks, or the gaps between what I thought would be and what is here. Right. And it's just, I'm like, oh, wow, this is insidious. This is, it's just really, it gets in there. It gets in there. Yeah.
It really does, doesn't it? Because it's looking to, that's what it's trying to do.
It's the job. It's
doing its job really,
yeah.
really well, isn't it? And do you ever compare yourself to a previous version of yourself? Not only where I should be, but oh God, look at what I used to be like.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes, I have. Yes. And I actually forgot about that, because in many ways I look back and go, oh yeah, good for me. Like I see the growth. But when I'm in this particular headspace, you're absolutely right. It's like, well, but back there I had X, Y, and Z. How can I be worse now than I was then? Like, and then the chatter starts, downward spiral. Yeah.
And it is really insidious. And when you're in it, it's so hard to break out of it. And maybe we'll come back to that in a moment. Before we do that, I just maybe we could edit this out if you don't want me to ask you this question. So I'll ask it you and let's see what happens. But do you know why that cycle started, the comparison?
This time around?
Yeah.
I don't have it's not like a one event type of thing, but it is becoming more visible online. And I desire to be even more visible than that. I'm growing my business. I've brought on an employee now. I'm doing more collaborations, like with you and with other people in my life. And so it's these people that it's like, I'm not just in this bubble all by myself doing my work.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, obviously I was with my clients, but like the business side, they didn't have anything to do with the business side. Now I'm inviting people into the business side of my work, and I'm collaborating with peers. And it's like, man, I got to show up. I have got to, and so I think that's what started kicking it off, because then I started looking at all the ways that I wasn't doing it good enough, and how I was letting other people down from my perception, and here's how I thought I was going to be showing up, and here's all the ways that I didn't do it as well as I really wanted to. All that stuff.
So do you think it was perhaps a trauma response was triggered in you from
100%.
From the whole getting to a place in your business where you're wanting to show up more, and then as a result of that, the comparison started? So actually there was probably a step before the comparison really kicked in. Not that you would have known, not that you would have gone, oh, okay, I've gone from this place to this place.
Well, it's nice when we can catch it, but you can't always. You don't always. Yeah,
exactly.
Sometimes you're quite a bit down the road before you go.
When you're in a trauma response, it's really hard to do much apart from get through it.
That's right.
And then if you're in that place, and then you're starting to compare, you've got a lot of work to do at that stage, because there's a lot of comparing to do, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm obviously I knew about this before we sort of got here, but I am sorry you've been having a tough time, and I really appreciate you coming here today and talking about it, because like you said at the beginning, you are absolutely not the only one.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, you're one of the people that create such a safe place for me to show up as me. And it is one of the things that I value and want to do for other people and do for other people. And I just thought, you know what? I want to be honest about, I mean, I say before, I'm not perfect. I don't have it all figured out. We say that a lot. But here's this is an example. It's like, I've been dealing with some trauma responses as I've been growing my business. I've been dealing with comparison talking. I've been dealing with And it's just real. It's a part of it. And I don't ever want someone to look at me and go, oh, she's got it all figured out, and compare themselves to me and think they're falling short. Because good Lord.
Because
We're
we're all dealing with it.
we're all dealing with stuff. We are all dealing with things.
Yeah.
And part of, for me, part of the healing is being able to talk about it and not hide in shame, because that's part of my past cycle, right? Yeah. Having a trauma response, feeling awful, wanting to hide, berating myself, doing it all alone in the dark, not asking for help. And I didn't do it that this time at all. I reached out for help all over the place. And
Yay.
now I'm sharing it, to say, I did get help. I'm not in that place anymore. And I want to talk about it. I want to let people know it's okay to be imperfect. And
Yeah.
and
Brené Brown talks about that that empathy, shame cannot live. Shame sort of dissipates under a sort of a blanket of empathy, because it can't exist when empathy is available to you. So that's what you did. You talked to people who were going to who were going to show you some empathy and helped you get out of, or not spiral down too far in that shame spiral. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Yeah. And I know we're talking about trauma responses here, and I'm assuming that everybody listening knows kind of what we're talking about. And what we're talking about is the classic trauma response. That the main trauma response is a fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, which we will do in a situation where we are, for reasons of things that have happened in the past, our body thinks that we are about to be attacked by a lion, or attacked by something that means that our body has to prepare to fight or run away or please or freeze. So it's a real I always say prehistoric, and that's not the word. There's another word, that primal. There's a real primal reaction. It comes from the amygdala at the back of our brain, which is the oldest part of our brain. It's a real primal part of us. And
lizard brain, I've heard it called.
Yeah, lizard brain. Yeah, and that's the part of the brain that controls our response to trauma. And once we are in that part of our brain, we've come out of the prefrontal cortex at the front, which is our rational thinking brain, and we're in this trauma response, and we can't do anything apart from hopefully carry on breathing and just find our way somehow through this trauma response. And what you're talking about, Robbie, is that you weren't in danger at that moment, but what was happening is whatever was going on, the feelings that you were feeling around it, your body was going, oh, I know these feelings, because your body has felt them before in the past, associated them with something undesirable, something to run away from or fight or flee, all those things. And your body just goes automatic. It's on automatic pilot, and it just goes, right, okay, we're in danger here. And we're in that trauma response before we know it.
That's exactly right.
And that's my go-to a lot of the time as well.
Yeah. And it took me a while to realize I was in a trauma response. I mean, that it took me a while to even understand that. I first kept going, well, why am I responding this way? And I first was like, come on, like what's wrong with you? Like,
just push through. You could do this.
This is easy. What's wrong with you? It's kind of, some of those thoughts, which I'm sad to say, but they still exist in there. They don't, and these are the times they show up, when I'm already in that trauma, or I'm already weakened, right? And
well, they
yeah,
show up because that's what we learn when
that's
we're
exactly right.
that's how a lot of us have grown up.
That's right.
And the messages we've had from home, from school, from family, from communities, from society in general, those are a
From
lot of the messages
jobs.
that we get. Jobs.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it took me a few weeks to even understand I was in a trauma response. And then once I did, then I've just like, okay, reached out to help. And uh, I'm so grateful to have skilled, empathetic, kind people that I can go to for help, you being one of them. It is, I mean, it just occurs to me how, like, not everybody has access to that.
Yeah.
I haven't always had access to that, and I'm extremely grateful. And, when we were talking before the call today, I'm like, I just feel so much lighter. Like I processed through that trauma instead of trying to push it down, which again was kind of my learned response: push it down, push through, right? Ignore. And it's like I needed to make space for it
Yeah.
and love that part of me that was trying to get my attention and help her feel safe, because we are in fact safe, and I can help her know that.
Yes. Yeah. Because the adult you knows that you're safe, but there is
Yeah.
a small part of you that doesn't feel safe. And
No.
that small part can cause mayhem.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
those parts of us usually cause mayhem at the most inconvenient times.
Always inconvenient. It's always inconvenient. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they get our attention.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
They've got our attention. And funnily enough, yes, I had that conversation with you earlier this week, and I've also had that conversation with two other people this week.
Wow.
So there's a lot of that around.
Something going on with Mercury? Like what's happening?
I don't know, but there's definitely a lot of it around.
I mean, but it's just something my therapist said to me. It's like, there is, she said, it's occurring to me that there's also a lot going on in the world
Yeah.
and in our country. And as HSPs,
Yeah.
we're susceptible to those things. We pick up on those energies. And I thought, yeah, you're right. There
Yeah.
is. I mean, there's a lot
Yeah.
going on. And globally, and then you bring it in personally, and it's all tied.
It
It
is,
affects us.
and it all adds up to a bigger picture, doesn't it? So if we,
Yeah.
and we've just lived through the pandemic, which has had us all on the
Ugh.
edge.
Yeah.
We've all been on involved in something that has never happened before, and the repercussions of it are only really beginning to show themselves now.
Yeah.
The rates of burnout and people just not doing well is massive.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely to do with the pandemic, and also because the pandemic highlighted problems that were already going on before. So we've had a double whammy, really.
Yeah.
It's highlighted the problems were already going on, created its own problems. And we're all sort of thinking that everything's back to normal, whatever that is or was. And it's not. So, I see it everywhere. I'm sure you do. There are people who are struggling.
Yes.
I've struggled over the last 3 years, a bit like everybody has.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, on top of all that's happened and everything that is currently going on in the world, you're trying to be more, you're wanting to be more visible and, really move your business to another level. And, I've heard many times that the best thing you can do, as a business owner is have a therapist or have somebody who you can talk
Yes.
those things through with, a therapist, a coach who does that sort of work, whatever, but
Yes.
somebody who you can take all those feelings to
That's
and
right.
air them and see what they need.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've already moved into this space. Okay, so if we're in, what do we do? What do we
Yeah.
do if we find ourselves comparing because something has happened to trigger us to whatever? but we find ourselves comparing. And, you know, it might help some people. I'm one of those people who kind of wants to know what's happening. So I do like to delve back a bit and see if I can work out what's happened.
Yeah.
And not everybody wants to do that, because the reality is this is where we are now in the present. How do we, what can we do to help ourselves in that situation?
That's a really great question. And I think the first thing I want to say is, because I'm saying this to myself now, is to help like if you catch yourself comparing,
yeah.
if you catch yourself comparing yourself, and again, we're talking about where you're coming out on the shorter end of that stick. Use it as a wake-up call. Like, notice it and go, oh wait, this is a symptom of something else going on. Because there is somewhere that you're feeling not good enough, or that there's something not right for you. And then from that place, you can do what Philippa was talking about. You can go, okay, what has triggered this? And I do find that to be helpful to do that in conjunction with somebody who knows what they're doing, with a therapist, with a really good coach, right? But it's also possible to do it if you have a friend who is skilled in listening, who can hold space for you. You know, as HSPs, a lot of us have that talent of being able to hold space and listen really lovingly to people. But find a safe place, you know. We can also, I did some writing for myself. So that's one piece of it, is looking at what is it that's going on. And then, you know, there's a question that you asked me, Philippa, because I kind of identified, I've been doing my own work. I worked with a counselor. I talked with you. I talked with a coach. Like, I was getting some help, because I'm like, this is feeling really big, you know? And what I identified was I was kind of being triggered by some workplace incidences. And I remember you asked me, like, what did you need then? And it's such a helpful question, right? Because the voice that is talking, right, the voice that is screaming for you to pay attention, the one that is standing up and saying, well, I'm going to say it this way, the one that's acting out and is like, stop doing that, with danger, 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 right? Is because they're the one carrying the wound. They're the one carrying the wound from before. And so it was such a beautiful way that you asked that. You're like, what did you need then? What did she need? I can't remember, you know.
What did that part of you,
that part of
you that was experiencing that, what did she need instead of what she got at the time? What did she need?
Yeah. And the beauty of that is that enables me now, as me here and now, I can give that to her.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, this is a familiar pattern for me in processing trauma, is adult me now. I mean, most of the time it's been with, you know, younger me. Like, what can I give to younger me from those times? This one happened to be also adult me, but, you know, years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, what did she need? And it enabled me to give that to myself, to create my own sense of safety, to treat myself really well as an employee and as a boss, you know, and to just do all these things that I needed in order to feel good and to feel valued. And because that's one of the things I needed to feel valued. I need to feel safe. I need, you know, and so you identify that for yourself. Like, what did you need at the time? Like, and then how can you give that to yourself?
Yeah.
How can you create that for yourself now?
Yeah.
And I know you've done a lot of work with trauma, Philippa. And I didn't intend this really to be a trauma talk, but here we are. This is where we went, and I love following where we go. Like, what else do you recommend for people when they are, they've triggered something? They're in comparison mode. They've recognized they've triggered something else. Anything else we've missed?
Well, gosh, I mean, it's very much an individual journey, and it's we do need to work out for ourselves what is going to work. But and that's where some helps, getting some support can help, and get some suggestions and try a few things and work. I tried all sorts of things when I was 6 years ago, when I had a breakdown, and I was really stuck in my trauma then, and it was all coming up, and then I went to therapy and brought it all up. So it was 3 years of sort of working through all the feelings that I had buried for so long. But I think recognizing the first thing I would say is that when we've been triggered, and I'm trying to imagine, is there a place where we could just be comparing with it? We've gone quite deep into how you're comparing sort of came about. Is there a place where comparing can just be not that insidious? I mean, I can't see that, but then that might just be my perspective. So this is just my perspective on it, and your perspective, because a trauma response is once when you've grown up with a lot of trauma, and you've grown up being on the edge of a trauma response all the time, and you're in hyperarousal, or your nervous system is in a state of hyperarousal all the time, then it's nearly everything's a trauma response.
It's true, yeah.
Until you can start to, the work to do there is nervous system regulation. And because when we're in that trauma response, nothing is going to help us. We can't rationalize our way out of it. And we could have a list of all the tools in our toolkit and all the things that can help us, but sometimes we can't even get to that list. We're in such a strong trauma response, and the main thing is to make sure you're somewhere safe. Ideally with somebody safe, if you can, if that's available, or you're in a safe space. And as it starts to ease, the most important thing is to try and get your breathing regulated, because when we are triggered into a trauma response, we start to breathe we start to shallow breathe in our chest. We breathe much faster, and our heart rate is increased, because it's pumping blood around our bodies to get it to our muscles, so that we can be preparing to fight or run away. We've got adrenaline and cortisol coursing through our body. We're ready. Bring this fight on. We're ready for it. So we can't really think rationally. So how for me, I find the useful things is when I can actually bring myself to the point of, okay, I'm safe. What I need, the first thing I need, is to bring my heart rate down. So that can be, a lot of people will say, try breathing, box breathing in and then breathing out for longer than you're breathing in, which gives you the signal that it's safe. But really, in those moments of extreme response, you're not even going to remember to breathe. So keep yourself safe, I'd say. And then when you can get to a point of it easing a little bit, what can you do to bring your heart rate down? So it can be things as simple as trying to tense all your muscles in your body as hard as you can, and then letting them all go, like really strongly letting them go, and do that a few times, because that it's changing your focus, and it will help bring your heart rate down. You can actually make your heart rate go up even higher. So run on the spot, do some star jumps, do some really intense exercise, and then stop, because your heart rate will naturally come down because you stop the exercise, which will help yourself. You feel safer.
Yeah.
If it's safe to do so because you haven't got perhaps a problem with your heart or something else, putting your face in cold water, getting a bowl of iced water and putting your face in that for as long as you can stand it, taking it out, maybe do that 2 or 3 times. That will bring your heart rate down as well. So finding things that will help you in those initial stages to bring your heart rate down.
Yeah.
Then it's soothing techniques, things to really help you feel safe, really nurture yourself, really, so that, a blanket and I don't know, my go-to was a teddy bear. 50 years old and hugging my teddy bear, but there you go. And my teddy bear, getting in bed. I always want to go to bed when anything's wrong. Whatever it is, getting in a bath, maybe, whatever it is that makes you feel safe, do that.
Yep.
And then the ongoing work is, okay, how can I live more in a way that is going to help me keep my nervous system regulated? And that's all. Maybe, we can talk about those in another episode, because otherwise this is all going to be all about trauma. But really, it is about finding those things that work, because there are things that work, but they're going to be very individual.
Yeah, absolutely.
I went into automatic mode of all these things. Also, the other thing is making noise. So the vagus nerve, the vagus nerve, which we won't go into polyvagal theory because I'm not sure I understand it, but I'm not sure I can articulate it for the audience. But the vagus nerve is what will help us regulate our nervous system. And if we hum, so just where that vibrates in our chest helps massage the vagus nerve. Blowing through our lips, going like that helps. So there are lots of little things that we can do to help ourselves be in a better place to then look after ourselves better. And a lot of us are in a state of nervous system dysregulation.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That was the most important thing that I learned during my recovery.
Yeah. I think we should do a whole podcast on that. There's a lot about that, I mean, you've given us lots of great stuff, but there's even so much more,
There is. And it's really important. And a lot. So I spent most of my life until I learned all this, just telling myself that I was weak, I was unworthy, I was broken. And when I was having a response to something, I would hide away and not let anybody see me. So I isolated myself, which just made it even worse.
Oh, it's so familiar to me. I did the exact same thing. And I think it's the go-to for so many people.
Yeah.
Because again, our lens is that there's something wrong with me. So we don't want to expose our wrongness to other people, right? The instinct is to hide it.
Yeah. And that's the the protective part of us is to hide. It is the part of us that's making us hide is trying to protect us, because nobody 100%. Will see, as though that's the right thing to do, because that is what we've learned.
Right. Well, and to be fair, it is probably the right thing to do with dangerous people.
Of course it is.
Right. So we're not saying expose yourself to the possibility of more trauma, but find the safe people in your life.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that I do and did recently was tapping. It is something that helps me when I am in that place. And I sometimes can't even do the whole tapping routine, but I can just do it in one spot, and that helps. Like it connects me to my body. It helps
it just helps you focus, doesn't it? And it can help you control your breathing.
100%.
As well as tapping, working in like the whole sequence and doing it, learning how to do it works as well.
Yes, it does.
But just
helps rewire.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Because we can, and I'm glad you said that, because we can. I mean, you know, we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff here, and but you know, you and I are living examples of how we can feel that rubbish about ourselves for quite a lot of our life.
Yes.
But it is absolutely possible to feel so much different about ourselves and be joyful and more confident and just, I don't know, just be brighter and lighter and have more fun. Like you say, doesn't mean we've got it all sorted, doesn't mean we don't have setbacks occasionally, doesn't mean we're not still dealing with stuff. But it is possible to get ourselves into a much more desirable place for ourselves.
Absolutely. The healing is possible.
Healing,
there are techniques out there that do help you regulate your system. Like there is so much available. It is possible. Yeah, absolutely. It is possible to still find joy and to create even more and more joy in life. And I mean, you know, now that I'm not in the shitty comparison mode, I mean, when I compare my life now, I'm filled with gratitude because I have created a life that works really well for my system. I have so much autonomy over the timing of things, and I can go step outside and be in nature and in the trees and go for a walk in the middle of the day. Like all these things that are just wonderful for me. I get to do work that feeds my soul with people that I love. That's incredible. I wasn't doing that before. I couldn't have done that before, but this is what I've created for myself now. Yeah. There is hope, is what I think I want to tell people. Yeah.
It's possible. It's doable.
It's doable.
It's worth it.
It's worth it.
And isn't it funny where we would, yes, of course we've talked about comparison, which is where we started, but where we've gone with that.
We ended up somewhere else. Yeah. That's actually one of the things I love about our talks.
Yeah. But also we have tried to get to maybe the core of it rather than sort of just talk about sticking plasters.
Yeah. I think we call those Band-Aids in the US.
Yes. Band-Aids, sticking plasters. Yeah. It's a temporary solution. And those things, I mean, to be honest, Band-Aid, a sticking plaster is all that is possible sometimes for that moment until you can get to a different place and go, okay, right, I didn't like that. I really didn't like that. How maybe I can do some work now to work out what happened, to understand what happened, and maybe to have some strategies that might help me if I end up in that situation again. But certainly in the moment, covering the wound with something is what is needed.
100%. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah. In the moment, reach for the best you can do.
Yep.
And call it great. Like I mean, for me, sometimes that's just putting something funny on TV because it gets me out of, you know, my downward spiral, and I could just put something on and I can just laugh.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, there's a million different things, but find the Band-Aid is exactly what you need in the moment to get to the next moment, to give yourself some space. And then you can start, you know, re-engaging your whole brain and asking for help and using your other tools and all that goodness.
Yeah. For me, what really helps me is going to my cold lake and swimming there with my friend who I know that I can tell her anything. You know, she'll just accept however I am that day, and we go and we may talk 10 to the dozen on the way there, we might not, but we'll get in the lake and we'll swim up and down, and whatever we talk all the time about leaving it in the lake. It's like washing it off, and And that is amazing for my nervous system regulation, which is why I've really stuck to it, because it's ticking loads of boxes. But I'm so glad I've discovered that. And I know it's not for everybody. I know not everybody wants to swim in cold water. I get that. I was in my coaching mastermind group this morning, and there's people in there who are like, no way whatsoever am I doing that. And it's definitely not for everybody. But find your thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say when you first told me about your cold water swimming, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could ever do that. And now hearing you talk about it, for so many months and seeing how beneficial it is for you, it does have me intrigued, I have to admit. I'm just like,
maybe.
Sadly, you're not close enough where we could go together and do that. But it's like, wonder if there's a group around here who might want to do that. I'm intrigued.
Good.
I'm dipping my toe in, so to speak.
That's the way to do it. It's the way to start.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, I'm glad to hear this. I'm thinking on that note, this might be a good place to end. What do you think? Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
Well, we went in a whole different direction than I thought we were going to go. I think I want to leave people with this, that something that I say so often, which is you don't have to be perfect to be valuable, right? Everybody in life has things that go well and things that are really hard. And if you're going through a part where it's hard, please don't use that please don't take that opportunity to beat up on yourself or say there's something wrong with you. Like, these things are a part of life. And just want to encourage you to reach out for help with safe people and to know that there's nothing wrong with you. You are good enough. You are amazing.
Yeah. And you're not alone.
You're not alone.
It's not just you going through that.
That's right. That's right. I think that's a beautiful place to end it.
I think that's a wonderful place to end it. Thank you for bringing this topic today, and thank you for bringing your story and telling us about what's been happening for you lately. I really appreciate you doing that.
Well, thanks as always for a safe place where I can be me.
You absolutely can. Okay, so I think that's it. So it's bye from me for now.
And bye for me.
Thanks for listening to HSP Connection. If you've enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Also, we'd really appreciate it if you could rate the podcast and share it with anyone you think might be interested. It helps others find us. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a review.
To get in touch with us, you can email us at hspconnectionpodcast@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you with your thoughts and comments on the episodes and any suggestions you have for future topics and guests.
We are both HSP coaches and speakers. And to find out more about Robbie, go to Robbie Lee, that's leigh.com.
And to find out more about Philippa, go to safeandsupported.co.uk. See you next time.